But to this submarines deal. Now, the Prime Minister is in the US for his big announcement tomorrow with the President and the British Prime Minister, American nuclear subs for Australia, and then later hybrid ones with Britain to follow. Now, ahead of that announcement, Anthony Albanese met the British Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak, and had one of those staged chats.
It's an important day for UK-Australia relations with the announcement that we're making, and I'm delighted to see you again.
Tomorrow will be a very big day, and AUKUS has been a lot of hard work. I've been talking with other leaders in the region as well, explaining our position, and it's been well received and understood why we're doing this. It builds on our long-term relationship.
Yeah, no, well, we're very excited about it. It's about our commitment to the Pacific region, which, even though it's geographically a long way from where we are, it's important in a way to demonstrate our commitment to the values that we both hold dear as countries.
Well, all very enlightening. Now, the price we keep reading about, $200 billion, but that's really adding inflation over decades and decades to come, so over the lifetime of the whole deal. It's an exaggeration, but the government is briefing that it will still cost a huge amount and a defence budget will be much bigger. Joining me is the country's top foreign affairs writer, Greg Sheridan of the Australian newspaper. Greg, thank you for your time. Is this the best use of our money? Whatever the figure is, it's huge, right? Is it the best use of our money in defending ourselves from China?
Yes, Andrew, I think it is. So I was a tremendous sceptic of AUKUS because originally we were just going to do something like the British deal. We were going to design a new sub and build it from scratch in Adelaide, starting with Sub 1. Now, frankly, it will be a miracle if we get a submarine out of that process in under 25 years. And so I just thought that was kind of Star Trek time. And, you know, I'm in favour of nuclear subs because they're so much more powerful than conventional subs, but that wasn't in a time frame to be relevant. But I would congratulate the Albanese government without hesitation here. It's still a lot to deliver. It's still a hard road ahead. But from 2027, the Americans start rotating at least one Virginia sub through Perth, not just for the fun of rotating it, but with a view to our training on it and over time taking it over, so that within 5 years, by 2032, we purchase that submarine from the Americans. Now, of course, a used Virginia will be much cheaper than a brand new Virginia. And any Virginia built in the United States will be 1,000 times cheaper, I'm exaggerating a bit obviously, than a sub built in Adelaide. So this is both the quickest way we could possibly get nuclear submarines and the cheapest way we could possibly get nuclear submarines. Then down the road, maybe after we've got 5 Virginias, the British will need their own successor to the Astute program. So it's not like we'll design the whole thing ourselves, and it'll be under very close adult supervision from the Americans, because it's now going to have an American reactor, an American combat system and all the rest. And I think it's a good thing that Adelaide should become eventually a place to build nuclear submarines. I think it's a tragedy that we lost the car industry from Adelaide. We now have less manufacturing than any OECD country in the world. We're the least complex economy of any advanced, wealthy economy in the world. We've got an economy structured like Saudi Arabia and a standard of living structured like Switzerland. And so I think this is terrifically good news in military terms and also a terrific nation-building project. I'm thrilled that it's got bipartisan support. And I almost can't believe that I'm talking in this unalloyed, optimistic, positive way about any government in Australia. But there it is.
Well, Greg, I'm sure you'll agree with me on this. This is you mentioned congratulations to the Albanese government, and absolutely. But also congratulations to Scott Morrison, who under enormous criticism helped put this AUKUS thing together, the agreement with the British and America. Enormous criticism. The French called him liars. The Australian media took the French side. And also to then Defence Minister Peter Dutton, who did say that he'd hoped to get Virginia submarines out here much quicker than a lot of critics were saying, like, 2040. You said 2017 now. Very important. The deadline for me, very important. So I think it's a triumph for Morrison and Dutton as well.
It sure is. So they got us across the nuclear Rubicon. So history will give them a big tick. However, Andrew, without being too self-justifying here, I was very sceptical of the program that Morrison presented to us. First of all, there was quite a lot of division between Morrison and Dutton privately. They were saying different things and they weren't in love with each other. And Morrison said, we'll get a design by 2030 and we'll get the first submarine built by 2038 in Adelaide, and all of the submarines we purchase will be built in Adelaide. Now, frankly, I thought I had a better chance of winning the Ladies Professional Golf Association Championship than that would ever happen, and that's what Morrison was telling us. Now, Dutton, without ever being backed up by Morrison, was giving a bit of a hint that he might have got something out of the Americans. Well, Dutton, I think, was closer to it than Morrison, but I take a government at its word.
You are absolutely correct. I think for too long, and Malcolm Turnbull was terrible at this, this subs deal has been treated as a job creation project rather than a national defence one. You know, jobs are important, national defence comes first. But listen, former Prime Minister Kevin Rudd, starting his job as our ambassador to the US, is now giving his first interviews in the US, coming into his new job. I have to say that unlike Paul Keating, with whom you've had some very vigorous arguments, he's taking the China threat very seriously. True, is very pompous. He seems to be running foreign affairs rather than just being an ambassador. But he was asked about this comment by China's president last week, that Western countries led by the United States have contained and suppressed China in an all-round way, which has brought unprecedented severe challenges to our development. Here is Rudd's response.
When a Chinese president says something as definitive as this, it also has its own intrinsic foreign security policy significance. And I do believe it further accelerates China's preparedness militarily for a future action over Taiwan, if and when Xi Jinping so chooses.
Is he right?
Oh, yes, I think he is, Andrew. So Kevin Rudd, you know, is a mixed grill. He's got his good points and his not so good points, but I think he's always been a brilliant analyst of China. And if you look at his analytical writings as opposed to his, you know, partisan campaigning, he's generally quite a brilliant analyst of China and very well respected around the world by people, you know, on all shades of the China debate. And he has, you know, through all the articles he's produced with the Asia Society Policy Institute that he's run until he takes up the ambassadorship, he has tracked very closely what the Chinese say to each other, what Xi Jinping says to his own people. And it is extremely militant. You know, Xi Jinping says Australia getting nuclear subs sometime in the 2030s is a threat to world peace. Meanwhile, he is building nuclear weapons more quickly than any other nation has ever built them in the history of the world. And he's building nuclear submarines at a rapid clip, and he's building the equivalent of the entire Australian Navy every year, and he's telling his people to prepare for war and telling the PLA that it must be prepared to win, to fight and win a war. So, and he expects the rest of us not to take any notice of this.